Breakwater treated oddities like weather, even when a calendar year repeated and New Year's arrived twice. Behind the bait shop, Harpo, Mary Sue, and Topher ran a tiny investigative game from a shed while Ava called it practice for real responsibility. The harbor smelled of salt and rope, and confetti still clung to gutters from the second celebration. Ava stepped on a coil of rope and stumbled with crisp timing, landing in a tidy heap. "Oops," Ava said, grinning as her goggles bumped her snout. Harpo's left ear had a small nick, and his camera strap glinted whenever he turned to study hinges. Mary Sue's platinum fur lay in braided loops like a crown, and she kept fussing with a polka-dot bow tie that never aligned. Topher hunched over notes, ink smearing his paws while his canvas sneakers squeaked on the floorboards, the lightning-shaped swirl on his back peaking when he bent. They disagreed warmly about shoelaces at night. "Moonbeams tighten knots," Harpo said. "Sleepy paws do," Topher said, and Mary Sue laughed to keep the nerves steady. When small things began wobbly in town, the trio stepped in because details were their habit. Fishermen trusted them after they found a lost anchor by tracking gull footprints backward. They kept maps of ATMs, alleys, and helpers pinned in neat grids. The bank manager raised his hands and asked someone to sort the mess, and everyone looked to the shed. "That sounds like us," Mary Sue said, tightening her bow tie. 3 floral white rabbits arrived dressed like they already ran the place. Ludwig carried a tiny baton and a belted brass megaphone, projecting confidence with every stride. Mr. Wiggle-Wuggle wore lace cuffs, silken gloves, and balanced an oversized bowler that shaded a notebook full of precise margins. Butch's spiked collar and silent heavy boots made doors seem careful. "We bring order," Ludwig said, voice booming even without the device. They took the infrastructure subcommittee by promising modernity and a festival when the double New Year returned. Ludwig said Breakwater needed a grand revival and praised shiny media that clicked, meaning LaserDisc. Mr. Wiggle-Wuggle whispered to pie charts labeled with slick jargon. The leaving nostalgia would pay. Butch said nothing, but his steady look backed them. "We revive the soul of this town," Ludwig said through the megaphone. Mr. Wiggle-Wuggle's notebook later revealed their 3-part plan. First, a midnight crew would replace every ATM with a Gumball kiosk that asked for a color instead of a balance. Second, a firmware bridge would skim a coin from each purchase to finance a LaserDisc plant by the jetty. Third, loud press events and parades would drown out objections while Butch carded fiber lines in those soundless boots. "Progress will be sweet," Ludwig said. By noon, a fisherman tried to withdraw rent and received a sour apple marble plus a receipt that said enjoy liquidity. On the dock, Mary Sue confronted Ludwig about small businesses. Harpo said the swap would sink shops that needed cash, but Ludwig shouted that sweet cash beat hard cash and claimed gumballs floated. So his plan did too. Butch's eyebrow scar pulled with smug patience. "You can't run ice and diesel on candy," Harpo said. Ava warned them not to sugarcoat insolvency, and tried a dramatic bow that ended with her goggles thunking against a post. Meanwhile, a feud between Rocco Spindrift the fishmonger and Dr. Meena Patel the weekend librarian had morphed into rooftop espionage. They trained 3 dusty-teal peacocks subscribe, Alice and Morris, to ferry chess problems on parchment flags between eves. Topher noted the birds could spot everything if the rivals paused their out-scheming. "We need eyes in the sky," Topher said. Breakwater's backyard astronomy cult stirred again. Members wore colanders as helmets and peered through repurposed crab pots at the sky, claiming a comet had looped indecisively and caused the double year. Their leader, a grandpa named Neb, tapped a tuning fork and spoke of resonance between shoelaces and starlight. Ava clapped and then tripped over Neb's telescope tripod, sticking the landing with practiced flair. "I meant to do that," Ava said. The rabbits tightened control with an emergency ordinance that moved all cash services to the Candy Liquidity Network. Ludwig read it through a blasting megaphone, earning angry gold dives that tangled his ears. Mary Sue argued that fishermen needed cash for ice and diesel, but Mr. Wiggle Wuggle pointed at the ordnance while the constable shrugged. Topher muttered that law without sense still made a mess, and Butch smiled like a closed door. "You're choking the ducks," Mary Sue said. That night, the rabbits seized the bank's server room. Butch sliced fiber lines clean and quiet while a truck delivered replacement candy drums. Under nets hung with plastic stars, Ludwig announced the cashless candy age, Baton keeping a showy tempo. Townsfolk fed quarter after quarter into candy kiosks because they had no choice. "Welcome to our future," Ludwig said. The wombats tried a quick repair. Harpo eased open a kiosk panel as Ava juggled wrenches and cracked puns to distract passing guards. Mary Sue and Topher slid an old ATM core back into place, but Butch appeared and set heavy paw on the panel without a word. Ludwig accused them of vandalizing art and promised fines while Mr. Wiggle Wuggle snapped photos for the record. "Step away from the installation," Ludwig said. Penalties stacked as the council posted warnings, and neighbors looked away on purpose. The chess feud escalated with Peacock couriers carrying accusations about the Candy Network. The astronomy cult declared Jupiter held a grudge, and Neb tapped his fork, saying even shoelaces would tangle under so much chaos. The pylon made the village feel colder. "Only a fool takes gumballs for groceries," a rooftop message read. At sunset in the square, the team hit bottom. Mary Sue said they might not be built to stop officials, and Topher snapped that winds never tied themselves. Then Harpo argued that sometimes knots tightened on their own once you moved. Ava tried a bright joke about not today and skidded on a stray gumball past a bench. Under a striped awning at the edge, a human Italian pizza chef tossed dough, dusting flour with a steady rhythm nobody noticed. "Maybe hope tightens too," Harpo said. Mary Sue steered them toward a solvable feud. On the library steps, they asked Dr. Patel to talk, appealing to her love of fair rules and clean games. Ava unrolled a tiny chalkboard and sketched how stalemate only favored the rabbits. The plea was direct and respectful. "A fair board helps everyone," Mary Sue said. At the fish market, Harpo praised Rocco's bold gambits and showed how Mr. Wiggle Wuggle used the feud as cover while the Candy Network hardened. Rocco watched subscribe preen and admitted the fight had become a habit stronger than purpose. The Peacocks demonstrated. Morris glided to the clock tower, Alice lifted a parchment without ringing the bell, and Subscribe fanned his tail to redirect a crowd for 10 silent seconds. The performance spoke for them. "We can tack with the wind," Harpo said. Quick interlude. If you're enjoying this story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so more people see Breakwaters fight. Drop a comment with the word slop to let us know you made it this far, and to cheer on the Peacocks. Thanks for supporting the next chapter. By afternoon, the rivals shook on a truce because the wombats treated them with respect. Dr. Patel agreed the Peacocks would join if the game stayed fair, and Rocco wanted the machines to pay for ice again. The birds tapped talons in agreement. Ava replayed Ludwig sneering that mumble rap had groove while Boom Bap bored him, and Topher and Mary Sue saw the opening. "We can use that bias," Topher said. Topher laid out a step-by-step plan. They would broadcast a clean Boom Bap beat near the server to bait Ludwig into drowning it out, pulling him off command. Mr. Wiggle Wuggle's timing depended on Ludwig's count, and Butch relied on silence to move, so strong percussion would scramble both. With Peacocks guiding and Subscribe fanning crowds aside, Ava and the astronomy cult would use telescopes as parabolic dishes to focus the beat. "He will overplay noise," Mary Sue said. They gathered at dusk like a patchwork team. The Peacocks perched along the server building's roof, tails flicking in signals, while Meb's cult arranged telescopes in a tidy arc. Ava tightened her goggles, joked about a vested lizard interest in interest rates, then fell off a crate and popped up with a ta-da. Harpo checked hinges, Mary Sue straightened her crooked bow tie, and Topher counted time under his breath. "Ready on the downbeat," Topher said. At the gate, Ludwig arrived early and waved his baton, promising that art patrols would not be intimidated by burrowing mammals. He bragged that any attempt to change the night's rhythm would meet louder rhythm. Mr. Wiggle-Woggle opened a notebook page titled Counter Wombat, but his scribbles looked unsure. Butch scanned with silent boots planted, waiting for a cue. "Try me," Ludwig said. Ava pressed play, and a clean boom-bap thumped like a steady work song. Neb's crew aimed telescopes toward glossy billboards, focusing the sound like a beam. Ludwig flinched, then blasted an off-tempo smear through his megaphone to drown the crisp drums. Mr. Wiggle-Woggle miscounted, waving 5s over 4s, and Butch took one silent step too many and bumped a cable trunk. "Louder!" Ludwig shouted, already off balance. Subscribe fanned his tail to pivot onlookers away from the hatch while Alice and Morris dropped ribbon markers along the roofline. Harpo opened the hatch with careful hands, and Mary Sue found the firmware console exactly where Topher's notes predicted. Topher called moves like a chess match. Rook to e5 meant move to port 5 and flash the old software. The beat held them steady. "Rook to e5, Topher said, crisp and calm. Ludwig tried to rally with tangled noise, but the steady drums cut through. Mr. Wiggle-Woggle's notebook slipped and flapped, and he disabled his own timer by mistake. Butch lunged to slam the hatch, misjudged distance in the percussive haze, and cracked his knuckles on the frame. Harpo seized the moment and locked the console with a town seal. "Next step, please," Ava said, sliding on a gumball to knock a cable free. Mary Sue installed the restoration patch while Topher watched the progress bar, repeating "hold steady" like a tide call. Alice cawed once, and Subscribe swirled his tail to pull Ludwig's attention at the worst angle. Neb struck his tuning fork, and the cult hummed by accident into the cleanest backbeat of the night, speeding the patch. The console chimed, ATMs woke, and the candy drum sagged, inert. "Hold steady," Topher said again, then exhaled. The Rabbit's power collapsed into a hush. The constable arrived with a new order from the Full Harbor Council. "Awaken to the con." Mr. Wiggle-Woggle protested and then misread his own notes, signing the seizure papers himself. Butch raised his silent boots and lowered them again as the door no longer yielded to him. "This is over," the constable said. By morning, real ATMs hummed beside repurposed candy kiosks for pocket change, not rent. Fishermen withdrew cash to pack ice, and the bait shop ran a special on celebratory sardines. Ava bowed without slipping and quipped that interest had finally accrued. The town applauded the Peacocks, whose tail fans became the signal for everything's fine. "Rates are up in good ways," Ava said. The astronomy cult took a friendly victory lap. Neb said using telescopes as dishes proved useful, even if Jupiter's grudge stayed a joke, and they traded colanders for plain caps. A junior member admitted the double year had really been a fairy timetable typo, and everyone laughed. They wrote a pamphlet titled "How We Accidentally Helped Anyway." "We amplified the beat, though," Neb said. Harpo admitted knots did not tie themselves, but they tightened if you moved enough without noticing, which felt like hope working while you worked. Topher confessed he liked believing in moonbeams even without proof. Mary Sue said they succeeded because one counted and one dreamed. Ava tapped her goggles, proposed a truce toast, and pretended to trip before catching herself. "To counting and dreaming," Mary Sue said. The Harbor Council removed Ludwig, Mr. Wiggle-Woggle, and Butch from every committee, levied fines and restitution, and banned them from contracts. The LaserDisc warehouse became community storage, open and ordinary. Future modernization would require a real public vote instead of spectacle. The Rabbits tried to speak, but no one listened to the megaphone anymore. "No more shortcuts," a counselor said. Breakwater kept the fixed ATMs and a short row of gumball machines now painted with fish and stars at fair prices. On Saturdays, the chess rivals hosted open-air tournaments while Subscribe, Alice, and Morris served as living scoreboards, their feathers aligning with captured pieces. The astronomy cult joined the library as a proper astronomy club and set a single new year on purpose. The village held 2 small parties anyway. "Call it a bonus confetti clause," someone joked. Harpo kept his camera strap cat's light. Mary Sue kept adjusting her crooked bow tie, and Topher kept smudging notes because some evidence should look lived in. Alpha had it a trick where she tripped onto a stage and stood up with a fully assembled telescope, and the crowd laughed every time. The peacocks nested by the clock tower, their dusty-teal feathers becoming a banner for resourcefulness. Breakwater returned to practical kindness. "Showtime," Ava said, landing her bit cleanly. On quiet nights, Harpo hummed a soft boom-bap while Topher mapped stars without blaming them, and Mary Sue wrote it all for the newsletter. The ATM stayed normal machines. The gumballs fed children and not investors, and the LaserDisc dream shrank to trivia. Responsibility no longer weighed heavy because everyone tugged together. They had pretended to be partners for fun and discovered they were partners for real. "Best surprise we could ask for," Mary Sue said. "All the slop in this video was generated using AI. This note is here so you know how it was made. Please like, subscribe, and comment the word slop to help more people find Breakwater's story. Comment slop so we can spot you in the flock," Ava said.